It was suggested that David De Gea would sign a new contract at Manchester United, but the closer it gets to July 1st, the less likely it seems he will. We've looked at who the possible contenders to replace him as Erik ten Hag's number one goalkeeper can be. Andre Onana. It has taken United a while to get around to Onana. Chelsea were heavily linked with the Cameroon keeper and were reportedly ready to pay £32 million, but they've backed off after Inter Milan demanded something closer to £50 million for a player they signed for free last summer. Few know Onana better than Ten Hag. Only 6 players have played in a Ten Hag team more often than the ex-Ajax keeper. Last year, the United boss described the 27-year-old as a masterful goalkeeper. Onana is a proactive goalkeeper, happy to leave his line, 4 crosses and to defend the space behind his defence. In possession, his passing range is as good as any number one, but what sets him apart from many is the positions he takes up to support and receive the ball. When he has it, Onana is happy to invite the press before playing over or through it. In these respects, the contrast between him and De Gea is stark. Again, though, United would have to pay. Not an unreasonable amount for a keeper that would make such a huge difference, but still more than they seem to be prepared to cough up to strengthen such an obvious weakness. Jordan Pickford. The England goalkeeper is tied down until 2027. But evidence securing Premier League survival hasn't quietened talk of the England keeper moving on. Pickford certainly isn't responsible for the Toffees' woes in recent years. If it wasn't for his performances in 2021-22, they would have been playing in the second tier last term. He won Evidence Player of the Year then, and he retained the title, even if Alex Iwobi came out on top in the Players' Player of the Season vote. The concern over Pickford, ever since he made the breakthrough at Sunderland after working up the league ladder in loan spells, has been around his mentality. Pickford, now 29, has matured with experience and he continues to improve. The fact he remains England number one, despite the form of Nick Pope and Aaron Ramsdale, speaks volumes of his consistency. There remains a narrative around him that is lucky to be Gareth Southgate's first pick. Diogo Costa. The Portugal international was the keeper most heavily linked with De Gea's spot, but the whispers seem to have died down, perhaps because of the cost of prizing the 23-year-old from Porto's net. Costa was Portugal's number one at the World Cup, edging out Wolves stoppers Rui Patricio and José Sá. United scouts are said to be ever-present at Porto matches these days, and the reports would pinpoint the keeper's style as much closer to what Ten Hag needs compared to what is currently got. Costa is comfortable with both feet, over varying distances, and is adept at leaving his line to assert authority in his box. When it comes to crosses stopped, he's in the 75th percentile among European goalkeepers this season. De Gea was in the 9th. Costa will cost a lot. With numerous clubs looking at him, Porto have no need to accept anything lower than the £66 million it would take to activate the release clause in his contract, which still has 4 years left to run. Clubs are generally still weird over paying big money for keepers, but even with a hefty discount, Costa would be among the most expensive options for United. Emi Martinez. United's goalkeeper needs a big presence, and Martinez is certainly that. Numerous number ones have in the past wilted in the spotlight of the Old Trafford goal, but there would be few concerns about the World Cup winner in that respect. There was reported to be concrete interest from United in Martinez after his Golden Glove winning antics in Qatar, and the vacancy in Ten Hag's net could come at the perfect time, with the 30-year-old stock unlikely ever to be higher. And he has made no secret of his desire to play in the Champions League. Getting him out of Villa could be tricky. Despite reports that Unai Emery wasn't a fan, it seems the pair get on rather better these days, and Villa have no need to sell unless they receive a huge offer. David Raya. Raya took De Gea's place in the Spain squad. Could the Brentford keeper unseat him at Old Trafford too? There are many who feel he could. Raya has been superb for the Bees since they came up, with ex-Spain boss Luis Enrique evidently more impressed with his form compared to what De Gea has offered. Last season, he saved 77.7% of the attempts on his goal, the best in the Premier League, and no keeper faced more than the 197 shots Brentford allowed. He's conceded 5 goals fewer than his XGA, a number bettered by only 2 others in the league. He's also extremely comfortable with his feet, something Raya attributes to the hours he spent on a futsal court while growing up in Catalonia. Jurgen Klopp was certainly impressed when Liverpool faced Brentford earlier this season, stating, "He should have a number 10 on his back with the balls he plays." Handily for United, Raya is approaching the end of his contract at Brentford. He has turned down 2 renewal offers and has spoken of his desire to play European football. The Bees, quite reasonably, feel £40 million is a realistic demand. Thomas Frank says it would be closer to £70 million if his deal had 3 years remaining. Tottenham could certainly use him too, but Spurs and United are refusing to go anywhere near Brentford's asking price. Spurs seem to have picked a cheaper option from Serie A instead. If United want a new keeper, Raya would be among the cheapest of the better candidates. Mike Maignan. United have been linked with Magic Mike in the past, but they have almost certainly missed their opportunity, with AC Milan unlikely to entertain any offers that aren't utterly ridiculous. Maignan moved to Milan in 2021 from Lille when Gianluigi Donnarumma walked out to join PSG. The Frenchman has filled those gloves wonderfully, and he has recently slipped on Hugo Lloris's old mitts after the France captain hung them up in the wake of the World Cup. The 27-year-old was named Serie A Goalkeeper of the Year in 2021-22 while helping Milan win their first title in 11 years. Milan have struggled to replicate that form domestically, but Maignan has maintained his standards while excelling on the Rossoneri's run to the Champions League semi-finals. Maignan is brilliant on his line, as Nathan Collins well knows, and he is strong on crosses. His passing is also up to the standard Ten Hag requires, especially over longer distances. Bart Verbruggen. There is plenty of interest in Anderlecht's young stopper, with Burnley and Brighton joining United among his suitors. United's thinking around Verbruggen seems to involve signing the 20-year-old to provide competition for De Gea before eventually succeeding him, rather than replace him immediately. The Netherlands under-21 international only made his Belgian league debut on Boxing Day last year and has just 25 senior appearances to his name. He's expected to cost £17 million, but Brighton seem to be at the front of the queue. Robert Sanchez. A year ago, Sanchez had plenty of big clubs on his tail. Now he can't get in Brighton's team. Sanchez has appeared in Spain's squads far more recently than De Gea, but he has slipped out of the national team reckoning after being usurped by Jason Steele. Roberto De Zerbi said Steele was closer to my idea of how a goalkeeper should play, which eventually led to Sanchez sitting out the last 2 games of the season. He had little counter-argument. The 25-year-old made too many errors last season and Steele performed better in possession. Brighton will look to sell Sanchez, especially if they sign Verbruggen. One possible scenario: United get nowhere with their keeper search and, with no other takers for Sanchez, they signed the ex-Rochdale keeper late in the window for a fee way under the £50 million Brighton might reasonably have asked a year ago. Dean Henderson. This might finally be the season Henderson gets his chance at United. However, this is something nobody sees happening, and he most likely will be sold.